Good afternoon, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience for waiting for us. I am pleased to welcome you to our webinar today on the Cambodian VAT on e-commerce regulations. We are honoured to have our guest speaker, His Excellency Dr. Eng Ratana, the Director of the Large Taxpayer Department of the General Department of Taxation, and his colleagues to provide a keynote speech on the e-commerce VAT regulations in Cambodia. I will start first by giving some introductory comments and then hand over to His Excellency. Following the speech by His Excellency and his team, we will then move to a Q&A session. So please feel welcome to put in your questions during the course of the webinar. Next slide, thank you. So as a lead-in to the discussion today, wanted to give you some updates with respect to e-commerce trends in Cambodia. So what we have seen in recent times in Cambodia is a tremendous uplift in the amount of e-commerce transactions. The revenue in the e-commerce market in Cambodia is projected to reach approximately USD 1 billion by 2022, with an annual growth rate of 16.72% and a projected market volume of USD 1.7 billion by 2025. We have a very high user penetration rate in Cambodia, and we expect to see by 2025 some 7.8 million users in Cambodia. Next slide, please. So with respect to tax, the increase in e-commerce has brought with it issues that need to be dealt with both domestically within Cambodia and also how to deal with cross-border transactions. On the domestic front in Cambodia, we see the rise of what we call micro entrepreneurs or Facebook sellers, particularly during the COVID time. We see the increasing presence of local delivery apps that provide food and other products to customers in Cambodia. And we also see the rise of domestic online sales and online platforms. In partial response to this growth, we saw the introduction of the e-commerce law in Cambodia in 2019, which established a local legal framework which provided rules around licensing and permits and also tax registration requirements. Next slide, please. On the domestic front, there are some exemptions with respect to local e-commerce providers that we note in the e-commerce law and associated regulations, and these are listed on the slide now. In particular, we note that small taxpayers that have sales of goods or services below USD 62.5 thousand per annum are not required to obtain a license or permit under the e-commerce law, and there are other particular exemptions which are available to domestic e-commerce providers. Next slide, please. On the cross-border front, which is more to what our webinar is based on today, we see the increase in the provision of services and goods by non-resident e-commerce entities, providing e-commerce activities to customers in Cambodia. Cambodia is not alone with developing specific tax regulations to deal with the taxation of non-resident e-commerce providers, and we see similar developments with respect to regional countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Laos, who have already or are in the process of implementing e-commerce tax measures on cross-border transactions, be it value-added tax or its equivalent goods and services tax, or specific digital services taxes. At the Cambodian level, we saw in 2020, under the tax on income Prakas, a broadened definition of what is considered to be a permanent establishment. And in 2021, we have seen the introduction of VAT e-commerce registration regulations, which will form the basis of the discussion today. Next slide, please. So mostly for our Cambodian audience, to sort of lay the framework for the issue, which has caused the need for these recent regulations. Typically, governments would tax a business with respect to a physical presence that business may have in a country. So normally when a business has a physical presence, there would follow a tax registration obligation, which would then allow the various domestic taxes such as value-added tax and corporate tax to apply. The issue with the rise of international e-commerce is that now we have the situation where a non-resident can provide goods and services to customers in a different jurisdiction without the need to have a physical presence in that jurisdiction. So it therefore becomes more difficult for countries or tax authorities in those jurisdictions to tax non-resident e-commerce providers. Next slide, please. So this issue from an international perspective has been looked at by some time by the OECD through what we call the BEPS action points, BEPS standing for base erosion profit shifting, which essentially refers to the need to develop tax planning defenses for multinational companies that may be looking to artificially shift profits from a low or no tax jurisdiction where there is little or no economic activity. We see recently with the OECD G20 inclusive framework, and in particular, the G20 summit that occurred late in 2021, this issue around the challenges involving the taxation of the digital economy. Next slide, please. So how this was particularly addressed and with the G20 summit and through BEPS was the introduction of a two-pillar approach to replace what would be currently imposed or currently developed by jurisdictions with respect to digital services tax and VAT. So we see under Pillar 1 of the OECD BEPS, the ability of a relocation of taxable profits from large multinational entities to the market jurisdictions in which they transact. And the second pillar introduces a global minimum corporate tax rate for large multinational entities. Now, Cambodia, of course, is not a OECD country and is not a current active member of BEPS. So Cambodia has to come up with its own domestic approach to how it deals with the taxation of e-commerce non-resident transactions. Next slide, please. So one of the key documents which the Royal Government of Cambodia has produced in May 2021, which I highly recommend for those who have the time to go through, is the Digital Economy and Society Policy Framework for the period 2021 to 2035. I'll just quickly touch on some of the key points. from a tax perspective that were raised in this policy document. Next slide, please. So the document addressed the challenge for the tax administration in Cambodia, which is also a global problem with respect to cross-border e-commerce, in which non-resident suppliers do not have a presence or a permanent establishment in a particular country. The report noted that countries with a strong digital economy are beginning to implement several tax policies, including the implementation of taxes on the use of digital products and services through value-added tax on goods and services, the implementation of digital service tax, and amendments on laws and regulations relating to the permanent establishment test for digital businesses. Next slide, please. The report contained an annex of a matrix of policy measures with respect to the Cambodian digital economy. And some of the three key measures that were introduced in the report were the revision of the legal framework in Cambodia relating to the implementation of e-commerce tax collection, income characterization, and the statute of permanent establishment, including domestic and foreign digital businesses, to mobilize companies providing digital services to apply for tax registration. The second action point was the implementation of value-added tax on the supply of goods or the use of digital services to strengthen revenue collection in a transparent and efficient manner. And it's on this particular point that we will be discussing in further detail today with respect to the keynote speech from His Excellency. So without further ado, I know that all of you are looking forward to hear from His Excellency and his team with respect to the VAT e-commerce regulations. I thank you for your time, and I will hand over to His Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, the Microsoft team, and also good afternoon, our participants. I'm on behalf of the General Excellency Kong Bibol, Mr. Attached Prime Minister, and myself and my team also thank you to all participants who joined in webinars from Cambodia and also from overseas today. You may aware already as Mr. Clint made the presentation to inform about the market of the e-commerce around the world as well as Cambodia data. And for Cambodia, this kind of tax is not a new tax. Actually, it's mentioned in Article 75 in the law on taxation long time. But in that time, e-commerce in Cambodia is not it's not more transaction. That's why we don't have any regulation to implementation. Yeah. So until the beginning of this year, 2021, last year, the government introduced the sub-decree number 65, dated 8 April 2021 on the implementation of value-added tax on e-commerce, and it is after that the government issued the Prakas in September 8, 2021 on the rule and procedure of implementation of the value-added tax on e-commerce. In order to implement and to clarify the taxpayer, also the government issued instruction 20 Y22 issued on December 8, 2021 on the implementation of value tax on e-commerce. Actually, the instruction state the delay of the implementation up to the end of the 2021, but because of the request from the non-resident as well as the resident taxpayer, self-assessment taxpayer, they need some time to prepare the system and also to inform supplier as well as prepare the internal procedure. They request to the government, to the General Department of Taxation as well as to the GDT. Finally, the Ministry of Economic Finance decided to delay the implementation up to the end of March 2022. So all taxpayers, both non-resident supplier as well as the resident purchaser, self-assessment, they have time to study and also to prepare the system invoice. As we met the non-resident suppliers such as the Netflix, Google, Facebook. Previously, we know from them, and we listen the request from those suppliers. They need some time to prepare the internal procedure as well as the inform the customer. That's why our working group we report to the our boss, Excellency Dr. and also Excellency Dr. Minister, Thai Prime Minister. They write a letter to Excellency Dr. Deputy Prime Minister, Excellency Opanmirot. Finally, Deputy Prime Minister decided to delay the implementation to 31 March 2022 this year. So from now on, the both, especially the non-resident supplier, have enough time, I think, to prepare themselves for the implementation, and also the GDT. At the same time, GDT need time to disseminate the dissemination of the information, and as well as they provide the taxpayers with training and seminars. Such as today, we have the seminar cooperate with the DFDL to inform all participants about our regulation. And my auditor, my official, Mr. San Chun Lee will present in detail about our law regulation, and I save time to listen the participant as well as the Microsoft team and DFDL, and also our participants raise a question and also request. So I think this is the new regulation and also the new procedure to be implemented. That's why we need to learn the issue raised by the participant, by the taxpayer, question as well as the request, and there's us to prepare ourselves, prepare our regulation, as well as the clarification of some point in our law and regulation. So I hope that this is an opportunity for all participants, and especially for the Microsoft team. I think they stay far away from Cambodia. Maybe they don't know clearly the situation and the law in Cambodia. They need to ask questions. So we are happy to listen and to answer the question. So I save time. That's why I finish my speak, and I give the floor to my official to make a presentation on the rule and procedure on the implementation of value-added tax on e-commerce. Okay, please enjoy this webinar, and thank you so much. So now I give the floor to Mr. Chun Lee. He make a presentation.
Thank you, His Excellency. Let me share. Sorry, I cannot make slide. I mean, share my slide. So now everyone can see my slide, my share screen. Hello.
We can see. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Good afternoon to all participants who joining this webinar. For both those who are in Cambodia and those who are at overseas. I believe all participants would be either the non-resident supplier or self-assessment taxpayer, which is Cambodian tax payer, or tax service agent. So I hope this presentation meet your expectation. So this presentation was prepared to summarize key points from this applicable rule and regulations on implementation of VAT on e-commerce. Taxpayer and taxpayers should refer to, because this one is an unofficial translation, so taxpayers should refer to the approved regulation in Khmer version, the public's in GDP website and social media for more detail. So to save the time, I will not go quite much detail, but I will cover on all the key points, and so we will have more time to go through the Q&A section. Okay, so for today webinar, we will cover this 11 topics. First, we will give you some background about the applicable law and regulation. Second, we will summarize some key definition, some keywords which are from the sub-decree and the Prakas, and also from the instruction. And point number 3, talking about the taxable person and taxable person under the VAT regulation, what defines taxable person. And number 4, about the tax registration. So who should do the tax registration and how to apply and how to do that. And number 5 is the time of supply. So to determine when to account for VAT, to collect the VAT. And number 6 on the VAT filing and payment. 7, the mean of VAT payment, especially for non-resident supplier. How can they make VAT tax amount from the overseas bank? And number 8, talking about the invoicing. What are the criteria or the point or the information that need to input in the invoice when the non-resident supplier they issue invoice. And number 9, talking about the import tax credit. Talking about what are the criteria for resident taxpayer to claim claim it as an import tax. And number 10, talking about implementation date, as His Excellency mentioned earlier, the implement date has been postponed to 31st March 2020. So this VAT will apply for both non-resident supplier and resident and registered local resident taxpayer from 1st April 2020 to 2022. And 11, talking about the penalty. So let's go to point number 1, introduction. As Clint and His Excellency already give an overview and broad about the development of the technology, especially also the economic on digital e-commerce. So let me just give a short summary of the again on the applicable rule and regulations on the VAT on e-commerce. So a sub-decree number 65 NK was approved by the government on 8 April 2001, and later on a Prakas was issued on 8 September 2021 to clarify and to give in more detail about the rule and procedure for how to control and manage the collection of the VAT on e-commerce. And later on, there is an additional, the instruction number 20 522 was issued in 8 December 2021 to give you more detail on how to implement this VAT on e-commerce. And recently, yesterday, there is a notification number 776 that issue is on the postponement of the implementation of this Prakas. As His Excellency mentioned earlier, because of the request from the both non-resident taxpayer and local self-assessment taxpayer, that they request more time to be ready for this implementation. So the government, the MOEF, listened to their request, and so they change. Implement the date would be from the 1st April 2022 onward. Next, we will go through some definition of the keyword that are extract from the sub-decree and the Prakas and also the instruction. So first is the supply of goods and service from business to business, B2B. So what I mean by this one, it's refer to the supply of goods or service from one enterprise to another enterprise. So B2B refer to one company or one enterprise to another enterprise. Second word is a supply from goods and service from business to consumer, or B2C. It refers to the supply of goods or service from one enterprise to consumer. So this one is a company supply to the consumer or to the user, the end user. And next is a digital good. Digital good refers to intangible goods that is procured, supplied, and fully transferred via electronic platform. And digital service refer to the service that is operated via electronic platform. And the electronic commerce, or we call it in short e-commerce. So it refers to the activity of purchasing, selling, leasing, or exchanging of digital goods or digital service as well as the commercial and civil commercial transaction that conducted via electronic platform. So in here, they highlight the electronic platform, and you can refer to the list of e-commerce form, e-commerce form, as in the annex to the sub-degree. But those lists are not exclusive. I mean, the list can be updated because of the technology changing. So maybe in the future there's new form of business in the future. And next one is about the electronic platform operator. This refers to the non-resident taxpayers who provide service, receive payments, and deliver digital goods or digital service to buyer via electronic platform on behalf of the non-resident supplier. So this one, it means that the platform will acting on behalf of the supplier on providing the service, receive payment, and deliver goods to the consumer, to the customer. And the important word you may be here is reverse charge. Reverse charge is a mechanism that the recipient of the digital goods or digital service via electronic platform need to account for VAT, value-added tax, on behalf of the supplier on the taxable value. So reverse charge, it means that the collection of VAT is a shift from the supplier to the customer. I mean, to the company receive the digital good and service. Okay. Next, we need point number 3, talking about the taxable person. This word taxable person is very important under the VAT regulation. So under the Prakas number 542, taxable persons refer to one is the non-resident taxpayer. So a non-resident taxpayer who supplies of digital goods, digital service, or any e-commerce activity, including electronic platform operator, into the Kingdom of Cambodia that meet the simplified VAT registration threshold. So what is the threshold under the simplified VAT registration? It is on the turnover, annual turnover from 250 million real. So it's approximate $62,500 US dollar, or expected to have a turnover for 3 consecutive months completed in the current calendar year from 60 million real, or approximate 15,000 US dollar. And for self-assessment regime taxpayer, or we can just call it a resident taxpayer, who receive the supply of digital goods or digital service or any e-commerce activity from non-resident taxpayer. Next, we were talking about the tax registration. For non-resident taxpayer, shall obligate to make tax registration under simplified VAT registration within the 30 days from the day when the turnover threshold is fulfilled. I have just mentioned about the threshold, turnover threshold, earlier in the slide. So once the threshold is fulfilled, it means meet the requirement 250 million real. So non-resident taxpayer need to register under the simplified VAT registration, and this tax registration is for with value-added tax purpose only. And they can do the tax registration by e-registration through the website as in the link, or come to do on-site registration at the General Department of Taxation. Okay. So what are the documents? What are the documents required for tax registration? First is the application form for simplified registration. They need the company need to fill in the form. Second is the certificate of business registration of the non-resident in the country that they are located. They are at the country. Third is the valid identity document of the owner or representative. It can be either ID card or passport. And next is a requirement for 2 current photos with this white background requirement. And another one is the non-resident bank account document issued or printed from non-resident bank. So this bank account here does not require the non-resident to do the confirmation from bank. Just we can accept just the a bank book from their bank or any other that can support this required information. And please note that all this requirement can be because this one is a global, is the worldwide, so maybe some documents are not in, can be in foreign language, but it's all be translated or show to Khmer language or to English language. So I will show you the tax registration form to make you familiar with this. Okay, so this is the registration form. So this form can be used for registration or updating the information, and the company can fill in this required information like the name, business activity, address, and etc. And the form here is you can read it. We have both in Khmer language and English language. So the first need to fill in the business enterprise information. Second, talking about the owner or representative information. And the third is talking, and the requirement is on the bank account. So the name of bank, account name, and account number. And also the requirement to attach the document as I just mentioned earlier. And to register for this simplified VAT registration, there's also a service fee for registration, which is 40,000 real for registration and 200,000 real for updating information. Okay. So that there are the registration form, and after the company non-resident supplier already, complete their tax registration, so they should receive official document from DGT, GDT of the VAT registration, such as certificate of the simplified VAT registration, identity card for registration, and a notification letter on tax obligation. If the company register on site, they would receive this document in hard copy. But if they do it online via e-registration, so they would receive those documents in PDF form. And non-resident taxpayer shall notify GDT and submit the form, as I just saw earlier, if there is any update or change of taxpayer information, such as the name, such as the business address, such as the shareholder. And if taxpayer, in case that taxpayer who fulfill the tax registration threshold but fail to, not to register, so or they are already, GDT invite them to register for this VAT, simplified VAT registration, but they are not come to register. So tax administration has the right to register and electronically for this simplified VAT registration. And next is on the time of supply. This also very important key term under the VAT regulation. So when is VAT is due? So VAT is due and paid at the time of supply. And the word time of supply here can be referred to non-resident. For non-resident taxpayer, it is the time or the date, the earlier date when the invoice is issued, or when digital goods is delivered, or digital service is rendered, or payment is received. So among the 3 or 4 criteria here, which one is earlier is the date of it is the time of supply. For non-resident taxpayer or self-assessment taxpayer in Cambodia here, they will collect the VAT on e-commerce under reverse charge. So under the reverse charge here, the time of supply refer to the earlier of date when digital goods is received, or digital service is rendered, or payment is due or paid. The payment due can be the company record in their accounting on the account payable or accrual. Yep. Next, about the application for VAT filing and payment. So for non-resident taxpayer, when they supply to consumer in Cambodia, which is a non-registered self-assessment regime taxpayer, then we can call it B2C. So non-resident taxpayers shall collect VAT at 10% rate of the taxable value, and shall file monthly tax VAT, file monthly VAT form return using the form UNO VAT 01, and together with the detailed information in the Appendix 1. And if they supply to self-assessment regime taxpayer, but they need to fulfill another criteria. The non-resident shall make payment using the company-owned bank account, the company name, if they make the payment through using the company name. So non-resident taxpayer shall not collect VAT, but they need to fill the detailed information in the appendix 2 of the form NR VAT 01. But if the company fail, do not make the payment using the company own bank account or company name bank account, so the non-resident taxpayer shall consider or treat this supply as the same as to the consumer B2C and collect VAT at 10%. Okay, to understand more about filling the form, let me show you the form NR VAT 01 together with the Annex 1 and 2. Okay, so this is the form NR VAT 01. So this the form is for filing, for monthly filing. So you need to fill in month and year of filing. First need to fill in the company information, and then fill in the information on the first is on the taxable supply. One is but you make the taxable supply to the consumer, which is a non-self assessment taxpayer. So you need to collect a VAT. So you need to fill in this column, fill in the amount exclusive of VAT, which is maybe your selling price, excluding VAT, and then the rest and the VAT amount. So the VAT amount is the 10% of your amount excluding VAT. And 2 is the supply to self-assessment taxpayer as well. But this one is in case when they fail to provide they fail to make the payment using the company or enterprise bank account. So you need to file this separately because those enterprise for the VAT they have claimed that they have paid, they can claim as input as on the rule and regulation that we will discuss later. So the non-resident suppliers shall disclose shall filing those supplies separately. And number 3 is on the purchase or sale. And the third is those companies that fulfill the requirement as I mentioned earlier. They are they are self-assessment taxpayer and make payment using the enterprise bank account. So in this case, the company non-resident supplier only declare the amount excluding VAT, as you don't have to collect the VAT from them. They will do that company will do the recharge, which we will discuss next slide. And then row number 4 is the total of those supply, those VAT. And we also allow for tax credit allowance in case you make adjustment, or you maybe due to a wrong amount invoice, or due to the cancel or whatever reason, it may be possible to give some credit to the consumer or customer. So you can fill in this column. And so row number 6 is the total amount of VAT that the non-resident shall make payment to the GDT. And also we also require the non-resident to file the tax return on the non-taxable supply, either to self-assessment or to the non-self-assessment taxpayer. Okay. And the form, okay, and this form and all VAT 101 is used when the company do want to file additional tax filing in the past that they have filed tax return already, but later on they just realize that they miss filing of some transaction. So they can follow this. They can use this form and follow the requirement similar to above. But this one include additional tax and interest in case that the transaction is not within the month of declaration. It means those transaction is late declaration, so it could receive some penalty and additional tax on this. Okay, and I will go through the appendix 1 and 2 for some information that need to file together with the form. So appendix 1 is to the consumer. So for normal company, we would require them to, for local resident taxpayer, when they do filing tax return, normally they would require them to file their sale transaction or transaction during the month. However, due to we understand that e-commerce transaction, when they sell to the end user, may be a lot of transaction. So, but we cannot allow them, to file similar to the local one. But at least we ask them to file a summary of how many transactions, type of transaction they make, they supply or sell during the month. And the credit note and non-taxable supply, they can fill in the detail here in summary. And for the appendix 2 here, they need to file this required information one by one, because those information is useful for GDT, for controlling purpose as well. And sometimes they also need this information to local taxpayer also need this information for their claim VAT input. Okay, so this form currently prepared in the PDF form here, but it's supposed to make it online via e-filing. So it will be updated later on e-filing, but the form and content would be similar to the form that we have present to you. Okay, so to understand more about VAT TIN number for self-assessment regime in Cambodia, so we just highlight that in Cambodia we have different type of taxpayer. We have large taxpayer, we have medium taxpayer, and small taxpayer. So for large taxpayer, you may refer it as L001 with the 9-digit registration number. And for medium taxpayer, you can see it's start with letter B or letter K, and with 9-digit number. And for small taxpayer, it start with letter E with a 10-digit number. So regarding the filing and payment here, as according to the law, tax law, the VAT filing and payment shall be done in Khmer Rial. So in case that the company receive the payment in foreign currency other than Khmer Rial, So they need to do exchange rate conversion to file for filing and to make tax payment by using the exchange rate of on the last working day of the month of supply, which published by the NBC, National Bank of Cambodia. And you can refer to this address to see the exchange rate on the specific day. Next is the tax for self-assessment within taxpayer, which is resident taxpayer here. So their obligation is to collect VAT by reverse charge on behalf of the overseas non-resident supplier at the same rate 10% for purchase of from a non-resident supplier, either the non-resident supplier, either they are registered that have a simplified VAT number or not. So they need to apply the reverse charge both based on the invoice amount from the non-resident supplier and together with the other supporting document such as the purchase document or the payment for declare the VAT and the reverse charge and the reverse charge. And they need to file the monthly tax monthly VAT return form using the NR VAT 02 together with the detailed information in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the form and make tax payment. And if the transaction of foreign currency, if they purchase from overseas supplier with foreign currency other than Khmer Ringgit, so for self-assessment taxpayer, so they shall follow the instruction 27617, which is on the exchange rate usage for the self-assessment taxpayer. Okay. I will show you the form and all VAT 2. Okay, so the form and all VAT 02 is similar to the previous form I just present, but this one is for local taxpayer or resident taxpayer. So the same, you need to fill in the month of declaration, month and year of declaration, the company information, and the amount that you purchase from either you are purchased from the simplified register non-resident or non-register. So you need to declare to file both purchase and multiply the 10% rate of VAT. And and
speaking.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, may I interrupt? Is it okay if you share the file form and or VAT 02 so that we can understand about the form better? If you share the slide on the.
Let me confirm with. Let me this. I mean, we will update you this because the form is still in develop and also I think later on many company would be able to declare this form in e-filing. So it just show you the idea of how you filing first.
Okay, thank you, Wong. Thank you.
Okay, and here there is a column for tax credit allow in case that you make a purchase and subsequently you receive credit note from them due to overcharge or any reason, so you can file you can deduct from the VAT that you already filing or declare, and after deduction you have a VAT amount and the reverse charge to pay, and the company also need to declare the amount for non-taxable taxable purchase as well. And please note that this reverse charge of VAT need to file separately from the normal VAT, from the normal monthly VAT declaration, and need to pay the amount need to pay separately, cannot be combined and minor input and output. So the under reverse charge is need to file separate and need to file and pay separately from the normal one. Okay, and the appendix 1 is the information, detailed information of the supplier of the transaction that the resident purchase the service from. Also, they include amount, exclusive VAT or VAT amount. VAT amount, okay. Yeah. Okay, so similar, the appendix 1 and 2 is similar. It's just different is between the register, the company, non-resident supplier that have been registered, and non-resident that have not registered yet. So this all for this is for the appendix for declaration. So let me go back to the presentation slide. What is the due date for filing VAT and payment? Okay, so the under the normal rule and regulation, the company need to file and make the VAT, need to make the tax payment by the 20 of the following month after supply. This is applicable for manual filing, which the company filing the monthly tax, and yeah. But if the company using e-filing and make the e-payment, so they can enjoy more by 25th of the following month. Okay, and next is talking about the mean of VAT payment. How can taxpayer make the VAT amount? So the VAT shall make VAT payment to GDT bank account at the partner bank. They can pay directly or through e-payment for local payment. If this one for resident taxpayer, they can pay as a normal process. But for non-resident taxpayer, they may appoint a representative or tax risk agent to arrange and make payment on behalf if they want to transfer that locally. But they also can, for non-resident taxpayer, they also can pay the tax through credit card or debit card, or they can choose to transfer from their foreign bank account to GDT bank account. But please note that if there is any cost incurred for this transfer, like the using credit card or transfer, so it should be on the taxpayer expense. And in addition, as we know that the transfer from foreign bank account, the money transfer from foreign bank account may take some time to allow, time to transfer to GDT account. So we understand about this problem. So the GDT have issued the instruction to allow another 3 days, another 3 more days from the deadline. It means 20 days, 3 more days from the 20 if you are filing by manual, or 3 more days from 25th if you are filing by e-filing. So So if the money can receive, I mean, through the GDT account by 28 of that month, so it is fine. But if the money is not received by 28, then the company may receive, I mean, maybe got a penalty on the late payment. So the company need to aware on this and should file and make a tax payment on time, as I mentioned earlier. Next is the invoicing. So what are the invoicing requirements for the non-resident taxpayer? So the requirement is quite, I mean, not very strict. We just want the non-resident taxpayer to include or to show some information on their invoice when they make taxable supply to consumer in Cambodia, such as first of all they need to show their name, address, and their simplified VAT, which is a simplified VAT tax identification number or TIN of the non-resident taxpayer. Then they need to show the name, address, and if the customer is a resident VAT TIN number, so they need to show the VAT TIN number of the customer as well. But if they sell to the normal customer, this one is not applicable. And the C is they should include the invoice number and the date of the invoice, and the description of the digital good or digital service, and the taxable value and VAT in taxable value and VAT, or they can combine both together by showing the total value of supply, including VAT. These are the required information under the, I mean, on the invoice from the non-resident supplier. But please note that the invoice can be issued in other foreign languages, but it shall be include Khmer language or English language for us to verify and for the user to understand as well. Okay, so next is on the input tax credit. So input tax credit here, this one applicable for the resident taxpayer, for self-assessment taxpayer who have paid VAT through the reverse charge. So the VAT amount that was paid by self-assessment within taxpayer under reverse charge mechanism shall be allowed as an input tax credit. But the input tax credit shall be allowed or shall be followed according to the provision of Article 29 to 39 and Article 41 of the subdegree on VAT, which is talking about the nature of the purchase and when to claim for the credit as well. But this one we remove the Article 40, which is required for original invoice, as this is the supply on e-commerce and on platform, so it's difficult for the taxpayer, so we remove the Article 40. And okay, this one is the same invoice or include, and the implementation date of this Prakas. So under the previously on the instruction, have mentioned the implement date of the VAT on e-commerce is on the 1st January 2022. But just yesterday, there is a notification issue on the postponement, as I mentioned earlier, that to allow the taxpayer, both the non-resident taxpayer and the self-assessment local taxpayer, time to study, to family, and to ready for the implementation. So it has been delayed, and the effective date of implementation is from 1st April 2020. But however, the registration of the VAT, simplified VAT of the non-resident supplier, so starting now from today. And if you want to register, you can contact us. We are happy to have all the non-resident taxpayer on the registration, so that the effective date on the 1st April 2022, the company can start collecting the VAT and pay to the government of Cambodia. Yeah. Okay. And this one is on the penalty. On the penalty one, if taxable shall be penalized as stated in the tax law and regulation in force if the company, both non-resident supplier and self-assessment taxpayer, if they fail to, the first one is for non-resident supplier, if they fail to register or fail to update information. And for the fail to filing and pay tax is applicable for both the non-resident supplier and the self-assessment taxpayer. So this is all my presentation, and I hope you enjoy this. And if you want to know to get the updated law and regulation of taxation in Cambodia, you may refer to this link, especially for non-resident taxpayer. Yeah, and thank you very much all the participants for your time. Yeah, thank you. So I give the floor to organizer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bong Chun Lin, for your very insightful presentation. So thank you again. Thank you so much, Clint, for giving the remark on the preliminary comment on the VAT on e-commerce, and also we also would like to especially thank to His Excellency Dr. Eng for your opening remarks as well. So moving to the next agenda is the Q&A session, and I would like to introduce myself. My name is Niriwat. I am the Deputy Head of Banking Finance Technology Practice Group here at DFDL Phnom Penh. And actually, I also was the national consultant to assist the Ministry of Commerce in preparing and drafting the e-commerce regulation. So I might be able to share some of my knowledge regarding from the legal perspective. So I'm here today as a moderator during this Q&A question. As you may know that some of you actually have sent us a question ahead before this webinar happens, and also some of you also actually sent us a question during the presentation as well. And some questions actually were addressed by Bong Chun Lee from the GDT already. So I will take some questions that are not has been addressed. So without further ado, we will start the Q&A session. So the first question will be if a non-resident e-commerce service provider do not register for the VAT purpose in Cambodia, can a Cambodian taxpayer still do business with them? That's the first question, and followed by if it's a yes, and then like whether a Cambodian taxpayer can have the transaction with those non-resident e-commerce that have not been registered in Cambodia, whether the local, the Cambodian taxpayer has to withholding tax on the payments that they will make, and also whether they also required to pay the VAT tax, reverse charge as well. So only His Excellency maybe can elaborate on this question.
Okay, thank you, Narirat, and also thank you DFDL that helped to coordinate for the seminar today, and also as well as the Q&A session. I think Narirat skip the question 1, right? Because you know already the instruction or the regulation delay issued just yesterday. Up to the end of the March and start to implement from 1st April 2022. So before 1st April 2022, non-resident suppliers must register before the end of March. Cannot wait until 1st April. Please be aware that must register before the effective date. Right now, the GDT invites all non-resident suppliers to come to register with GDT, what they call the simplified VAT register. So should not wait until the end of March because it's no time, because starting from 1st April 2022, all supply must charge VAT 10%. And also the self-assessment taxpayer who purchase digital goods and digital services from overseas must apply the VAT charge 10%. So please come to register from now on. So regarding to the question 2 and 3, question 2 mentioned about the if non-resident e-commerce provider do not come to register with the GDT, whether the site assessment or business, it means that the business in Cambodia, it means that resident taxpayer in Cambodia. We call resident taxpayer in Cambodia, I refer to self-assessment taxpayer who purchase digital goods and services from overseas, whether or not register with GDT, they must apply the VAT charge. As the purchaser, any purchase digital goods and services from overseas must apply the VAT charge 10%. And for intercompany royalty charge under the scope of this regulation VAT on e-commerce, it depends on whether the royalty is related to e-commerce or not. If the royalty, for example, like the Amazon they come to do business in Cambodia, they sell the franchise, it's a kind of royalty also not apply for the e-commerce regulation here, because we apply only the e-commerce. It means that they place order online, they supply online, and also they deliver online also. So for royalty, the answer can be yes or no. It depends on the substance. It is whether royalty related to e-commerce or not. If it is related to e-commerce, must apply the VAT charge. And don't forget, any purchase intangible good, the kind of royalty must apply withholding tax. Don't forget, withholding tax is one kind of the tax levy from the person who earn income. The VAT is a levy from the person who consume goods and services. So different. So please differentiate between VAT and withholding tax. Withholding tax is a kind of the tax on income levy from the person who earn income. But for the VAT, levy from the people who consume goods and services. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, His Excellency. I think another question is very simple because now it's good news that the government or the GT actually decided to give some time to the investor or to the private sector non-resident e-commerce service provider to have some time to prepare their policy and also mechanism on how to comply with our regulations. So the question would be for example, if a local, a Cambodian taxpayer that they still want to do business with those a non e-commerce service provider that they have not registered because we give them some time to register, right? But right now they have not registered. Whether this local company still can do business with the non-resident e-commerce service provider?
The result actually can. Answer can. The purchaser as a self-assessment taxpayer who supply digital goods and services from overseas must apply reverse charge starting from 1st April 2022. And for the supplier, if they met the criteria as Mr. Chun Lee present a moment, it means that they have turnover more than threshold, they have obligation to register as VAT simplified, register what we call a simplified VAT register, and they apply the VAT 10% when they supply goods and digital goods or services to customer. But as a purchaser, whether or not the supplier, for non-resident supplier, purchase from non-resident supplier, whether they register or not, as the purchaser have to pay VAT. But the difference thing is that if they don't register, must apply reverse charge by its own. And if the supplier register properly, the register themselves can charge VAT from the purchaser. Totally, the purchaser must pay VAT 10%, no matter the supplier, non-resident supplier register or not. They have to pay 10% VAT. But the VAT 10% is not a final tax for the business, for the purchaser. It's just the input. They record a credit, and they can claim that credit when they supply goods or services to customer. So it's not a final tax. VAT 10% is an import tax. Import tax, it means that the money of the company in the balance sheet, in temporary account, they record in balance sheet in the non-current asset, and they can offset with the liability when they sell goods and services, and they charge VAT 10% from customer, what they call output VAT, and then minus import VAT.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think the response is very clear, and I hope the person who sent the question will be clear as well. So moving to another question is, I think also important, whether for a non-resident supplier who have registered the VAT purpose only, and whether they have obligation to differentiate between the customer between B2B and B2C or not.
Actually, they have to. They have to. When any order from the purchaser, the non-resident supplier, they need to know if the purchaser they don't give tax identification number, and also they don't pay based on the company account. The supplier, the non-resident supplier, have obligation to charge VAT 10%, because they think that those purchaser may not the self-assessment taxpayer, but if the purchaser, they place order with a TIN number and they make payment through the company bank account, the supplier don't need to charge VAT 10%. The purchaser can apply VAT by reverse charge.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency.
Yeah.
And I think another question is about the timeline of the implementation of this regulation as well. Like for example, there are some particular transaction that happened before the regulation on VAT on e-commerce has been adopted. For example, the transaction happened in 2019, but it's still ongoing until now. Whether these particular transactions is applicable, or I mean, is also obliged to comply with the regulation on the VAT on e-commerce or not, Your Excellency?
Yeah, thank you, Narendra. Actually, in Prakas and also in the instruction mentioned clearly about the time of supply. If the digital goods and services already supplied before the effective date, they don't need to apply VAT 10%. Even we charge, or also they charge VAT 10% from the non-resident supplier. But if the transaction incur, the supply happen after the effective date, they have to apply 10%. The effective the condition for the time of supply when the digital good or services deliver, or the invoice issue to customer, or the payment is paid, or the good digital good or services digital good delivers to the purchaser or the service render. I think either which one is earlier. So we can see that as time of supply happen. So if the transaction incur, as I mentioned, before the effective date, they don't need to apply VAT 10%. If the transaction incur after the effective date from 1st April, have to apply. And Nerirath may mention about such the contract. Let's say they pay the step by step, right?
Yes.
It means that they purchase, let's say, purchase the software, they pay within 3 months, every 3 months. So if the payment is paid after the due date, the time of supply incur within effective date, have to apply 10% VAT.
So Your Excellency, from my understanding, is it as it depends on from each transaction, from each invoice payments? Is it correct, or not as a whole transaction?
Not the whole, not the whole. It's just some part. It's all part already incurred before the effective date. It's no need to apply 10%. Yeah,
it's very clear now.
Should be reasonable.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think some of the questions they would like to know as well about the VAT reverse charge declaration form that we was talking about, and Bong actually already mentioned that the GDT is in the process of preparing, and we are being put it on available on the website soon. So I hope everyone is waiting for that. And I think moving to another question is also related to the filing as well. So I think from the presentation, we understand that for the VAT registration for the non-resident supplier can file or can register with the online. How about the VAT reverse charge, whether they also can also do e-filing as well?
Yes, actually, all will be in e-filing, but currently the form already produced, hard copy already produced, and the online system in the process, I think, maybe finalized within 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good news. 1 or 2 months. Okay, thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
I think for the, I think moving to another question. Another question I think also probably Bong Chun Li already addressed, but I will ask again. Probably the audience still want to hear from you. Like for example, you know, some of the non-resident supplier actually is operating the platform operator as a platform operator. So they have platform operator and also the service provider, the supplier as well. So who will be the responsible to collect this VAT, whether the platform operator or the supplier themselves?
Thank you, Nerirot. The platform operator is responsible to charge VAT, is not a supplier. The service provider is they provide service to customers through the platform provider. So the platform service provider have to charge VAT and pay to the PDT.
Oh, I think it's very clear. Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency. Yeah, I think moving to another question that I believe many of the audience actually asked. So actually, based on the Prakas on the tax on income in 2020, the definition on the permanent establishment actually also include a non-resident e-commerce service provider as well. And the question would be, if a non-resident e-commerce provider register for this VAT in Cambodia, so under the e-commerce regulation, whether they will create a PE and also whether they also require to register a self-assessment taxpayer.
Okay, thank you, Nerirot. Actually, I heard from non-resident supplier the concern about that. Actually, in our sub-degree and also Prakas mentioned clearly, the simplified VAT register is not considered as a PE. So don't worry. In the future, I think it's maybe different, but country in the world right now, especially OECD, in the process of the changing or definition of PE, but not yet approved, not yet consensus. So currently, our regulations mention about that, especially sub-degree for VAT on e-commerce and also Prakas VAT on e-commerce state that the simplified VAT registration not consider VAT for non-resident service provider. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
I think that's very good news for the non-resident e-commerce.
But not in the future. May not be clear. It depends on, right? I think it's all the world reform, the world tax administration reform.
Correct.
So we don't expect maintain the same in the future. I think but it's not only Cambodia alone. We follow international best practice also. Before we issue this regulation, we learn from different countries. We research, and we know some other country. Even some country currently they levy in income tax, but not refer to the PE. They have different definition. Let's say like in India, the equalization charge in other country they put different name in order to levy income tax, but Cambodia not yet. Don't worry, please come to register only for VAT.
I think this is a good news. So it might attract a lot of company that would like to comply with this, and they will not worry to other application for tax application as well. So moving to another question regarding to the invoice requirements. So under the instruction 2052.2 on the self-assessment taxpayer, is required to provide email, business bank account, detail, VAT register, VAT register e-commerce. So if the self-assessment taxpayer do not have all the information, all the required information, where the VAT whether the non-VAT consider this as a B2C instead of B2B, because sometimes the supplier or some people or customer probably they don't put detailed information, so it's harder for the platform operator or VAT than a non-resident e-commerce that has been registered for VAT to define whether they are B2B or B2C, whether this are justified as a B2C, Your Excellency.
Yes, Niraj, actually, the only two conditions that they specifically must clear on the instruction. One is a TIN number. Second is the bank account. We consider about that. We worry about that. If we don't put a condition of bank account, let's say the VAT, the other people can use other company TIN number and order place order, and they say that okay, they're the company owner or the company staff, and then finally they order on their own, and then they don't apply reverse charge, and who responsible for VAT? That's why we put two conditions to make sure any order to non-resident supplier cannot be a fake order. It must be a company, because they one TIN number, they can borrow the copy of TIN number from other taxpayer. They can do whatever they can. Yeah, even the staff also, they want to, let's say they buy good, digital good for their own the personal use, not for the company. They just they borrow or they use the TIN number of the company and place order. Finally, who responsible VAT? But to close this loophole, we put one more condition: the TIN number plus account number of the company, so okay, they cannot cheat like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So order item, order substance, I think that existing invoice already have. Like the name of the purchaser must have. They supply good, digital good or services to customer. They need information from customer. Actually, they need must have the purchaser must have some information, at least the name, the company name, or they have to put the invoice number, the date, or the quantity, what is the kind of service, good, digital good or services, and the quantity of product, how much price, how much total value. It must have, I think. So existing invoice for non-resident supplier have already orders item, except the two important item I mentioned, TIN number and the bank account, pay by bank account. It must fulfill these two conditions. Otherwise, and the non-resident service provider must charge VAT 10% from the purchaser.
So, so to sum up this, is the obligation for the supplier must to verify the two conditions, the TIN number and also the bank account, whether TIN number is belong to the bank account, the same company name.
Yeah. Okay. Only two conditions.
Yeah, that's very clear. So moving to another questions. So some audience they question that.
Let me clarify a little bit. There is what, let's say if the company they place order, let's say ABC Co-LTD, and they use the personal account to pay that order, I think it's not correct. Even the accounting rule also not allow them like that, right? Because when you buy for company, you have to use company money, not use other people money. This is not correct. It's harmonize with the requirement of accounting document also. Yeah, this is not the special thing. It's a normal practice, I think. Yeah, because the company must have must use company account. If they use for your own company own account, maybe it's not for company purpose, it's for other purpose, and cannot claim input, and also cannot claim deduction also. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's very clear. So moving to another question. So the question would be whether these are I think probably it's not very okay. The question would be whether these VAT on the e-commerce sale is the same on a VAT on regular, like offline in-shop sale or not, and or do we need to set up a separate process for the invoicing reporting that we already have? And that's the question from our audience, His Excellency.
You mean that the offline apply reverse charge or VAT or not, right?
Yeah,
we have the e-commerce, we have offline and online. So for e-commerce, VAT on e-commerce, we apply on the online service, not offline. Offline is a kind of the, let's say, tangible good. They have to across the border, in physical good, they have to pay tax at custom department. Custom declaration. So for the digital service, good, they supply through online. You cannot, custom department cannot catch the transaction. That's why we require them to pay 10%. Both supplier or purchaser if they are self-assessment taxpayer.
Yeah, I think the concept is similar to the e-commerce on the legal perspective. Like, because like if you are running a business operating like offline, you still have to comply with all the general regulation as well. But if you happen to do business online, and then you will have to comply with the online or e-commerce regulation as well. I think it's similar to the legal perspective as well. So
we actually we discuss a lot with the custom department before they think that it may be duplicate or they confuse between the what is the digital good. They think that maybe that when they come through the custom checkpoint, they have to charge, and also GDT charge one more time. Before some people they confuse and discuss with GDT, and finally the GDT team explained clearly already. Now the custom department official also they understood about that. So we distinguish the differentiate between the what is offline transaction and online transaction. So the VAT for e-commerce for GT manage only online digital goods and services.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your clarification. So moving to another question that was sent during the presentation today. So how many smaller companies will be affected by this e-commerce VAT? And for example, a small company for in Cambodia who hire Filipino web designer, will the company pay the VAT on this service?
Okay, for small taxpayer, in our Prakas mentioned about the incentive for the digital goods and services supplied to small taxpayer. You may know already the small taxpayer, they can claim import tax to 80%. And also if they buy digital goods and services within 5 years, right? I forget the year. Actually, 5 years, right? 5 years. 5 year exemption is a small taxpayer. Medium and large have to apply with reverse charge, but the small no need to apply reverse charge. But the small, as Mr. Chun Lee present, the TIN number, they have the TIN number. What the what S, right? E yeah, E in the front of the number E. The supplier can know about the small taxpayer when they provide TIN number. We start with E, is a small taxpayer, no need to charge VAT 10%. But important thing, have to pay through the enterprise bank account. Otherwise, the supplier has to treat us consumer
Okay.
The consumer has to charge VAT 10%. It's important point.
Okay. Okay. I think this
Yeah.
is. I think the concept also similar to the law on e-commerce as well. There are some exemptions. If you are you are a small taxpayer, then you probably can get some exemption by asking for the exemption from the MOC as well. That you don't need to get the license instead of getting the license. So moving to another question as well that asked during the presentations. So the question would be, there's a lot of question about the invoice, I think. So I will read out loud. So will the GDT be issuing further instruction to clarify how foreign supplier can differentiate the B2B and B2C? And this is important because under the instruction 2052.2, introduce a new requirement for foreign supplier to check the name and the registered bank account of their customer before treating them as a B2B. And what happens if the detailed information are not provided, and whether the foreign supplier will be recharged, will be obliged to any penalty under the VAT on e-commerce regulation, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Nerirot. Actually, I mentioned already important condition, 2 important condition only. If they have TIN number and the payment through the bank account of the company or the enterprise, I don't say the company, the enterprise is both, because medium taxpayer can be the legal entity or can be a sole proprietorship. So I say enterprise. Yeah. The have TIN number and also account of enterprise payment. Only 2 conditions. It is most important to show that the purchaser is the self-assessment taxpayer. It's a B. Self-assessment taxpayer, it means that B. B2B is when you sell digital goods or services to any purchaser who have TIN number, and also they pay through their enterprise account. It means B already, B2B. You don't need to charge VAT 10%. If they don't give the 2 important conditions, as supplier, they treat the purchaser as a consumer or as a physical person, and must charge VAT 10%. It's easy to identify.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. I hope the audience get their answers clearly, because His Excellency already mentioned again already. So I think the next question will be whether this VAT reverse charge also apply to the Prakas 597 on the criteria of agent and principal. Prakas on Prakas number 597 on the criteria of agent and principal, whether this regulation applicable to this Prakas as well, the criteria.
I don't understand clearly about the question whether what kind of charge agent and principal. It's not agent and principal apply only the local service, not across the border. In the agent and principal regulation state clearly about that. Consider agent, between agent and principal must be local supply, is not across the border.
Okay.
The border cannot be agent and principal.
Okay. So given the nature of the agent and principal only happen in Cambodia, so this regulation
in-house, so mistake only,
So this is very clear. So if you have a few more questions, I will try to get 2 more. So I
would like to hear from the group of Microsoft team whether they have question or not, because today we meet the team of the Microsoft, but we don't know, we don't hear question from Microsoft team. Please.
His Excellency. Actually, Microsoft team sent us question before the webinar happened today, and I already actually asked Your Excellency. I think one of the questions they asked is about the obligation where the platform operator or the supplier itself is the responsible for collecting the VAT. That's one of the questions, and I think the other one that they asked. I think we already they asked about the invoice, and I think we already asked Your Excellency already. Unless Microsoft team have other questions, then I will ask this question to convey the question to the Excellency. Let me know, Microsoft team.
Please, all participants, any participant can ask question directly to me or through the reward.
Okay. I'm trying to read now.
Yeah.
Hi. Nerot, I think Microsoft also asked the question about how to pay the registration fee manually at the moment if they do not have a bank account in Cambodia.
Oh, yeah, Clint, thank you so much your question. Currently, actually, our system online not finalized yet. We can pay manual. We can come to GDT, and if any resident supplier can register, can come to GDT, and also contact me. I will assign an official to help those non-resident suppliers to register manually currently, but in the near future, they can register directly through our websites. But currently can pay manual. Yeah, they come and fill the form manually and pay the fee, and then the GDT can issue the certificate of registration, simplified VAT registration. Yeah, but the near future, after we finalize the IT department to finalize the system, the non-resident supplier can register directly from overseas.
I think probably Clint can ask the last question for today webinar, maybe.
Maybe, Your Excellency, just as a follow-up to your reply, so I'm assuming if Microsoft do not have anyone on the ground in Cambodia, I assume they can use a tax agent to make the payment on their behalf. Is that correct, Your Excellency?
Yes, actually can. Currently, for registration, we have a group of people to assist for the non-resident taxpayer can come to register, and we can assign the agent like the DFDL and others. The local company can ask a tax agent and help them to register.
Thank you, Your Excellency. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is with respect to if there is an overseas head office and they recharge a e-commerce good or service to their Cambodian subsidiary, would the reverse charge still be applicable under a intercompany group recharge scenario?
Thank you, Clint. Yeah, the answer is yes or no. It depends on the substance of the charge. If the reality or the charge is related to the e-commerce activity, as I mentioned already, online, is they have to apply the charge and also apply withholding tax. Yeah, but if any charge not related to the e-commerce transaction, as I mentioned, online, no need to apply with charge. Apply only withholding tax 14% or 10% if they have DDA with Cambodia.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Back to you, Nirowat.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Thank you, Your Excellency. So I think we already time is up. Moving to probably the closing remark. So first of all, I would like to express my appreciation to His Excellency Dr. Eng Ratana, and also Bong Chun Lee and from the GDP team, and also our team Clint, and also organizer for their valuable contribution to this webinar on VAT on e-commerce in Cambodia. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this webinar today, and also please kindly give your feedback by scanning this QR code, so that we can make a better future webinar. So thank you, Your Excellency, thank you, Bong Chun Lee, and thank you, Clint.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.